Peace.
Hello, hi, welcome everybody, and welcome to those who also watch this on the post stream.
Peace.
We are glad to be here. This is Ananda, my wonderful wife. My name is Zakai.
Yes, this is Zakai.
And we are having African spiritual conversations.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
And today we'll be talking about just having a conversation. And I think it's fitting because we're coming up on the solstice, the winter solstice, and the end of the year. But this is a conversation we have all the time, which is ancestral veneration. And one of the things that we talked about was what life was before ancestral veneration and what is it like now and in our daily walk. Our daily African spiritual walk.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, well, before we probably want to go there, just let's talk about that word, like veneration, because there's some confusion sometimes. People, you say, well, you worship your ancestors, or you speak with your ancestors, or you have a relationship with your ancestors. Sometimes people are not really clear about what those things mean, because that's not really a part of the kind of Western tradition in a way.
But you know what? Even as you were saying that, I really want to say it is, but it's in a way that is, it's like it's not necessarily veneration, but what it is when people's loved ones pass and they feel a sense of sorrow and longing.
Yes.
And they may meet someone like some folks that we know who are mediums or seers, or, who, loved ones come to and give messages to say that they're okay and that they're good, and or to give more insight into how they left or why they left, right? Or to maybe help someone not feel guilty if they might feel like they're the reason why they left, right? So
sure.
Things like that. And so I think that that's interesting that people do that. But when it comes to having a daily, not all people do that, but a lot of people do it. And a lot of humans, because we want to know that somebody that we spent time with here, most people want to know. And the people that I'm speaking about specifically are folks who practice, the Abrahamic faiths. And in practicing the Abrahamic faiths, they usually just focused on, or the teachings are focused on either the prophets of that tradition or the old, what do you say, like the Torah or the Old Testament, the scriptures, thank you, and the word, right? Excuse me. And so when folks do that, when people pass away, it does leave a lot of humans feeling empty.
Right.
And even though they practice a faith, it's still unknown. It's still a great mystery. When people cross over, it's a great mystery.
Yes.
And so they want to know, like, okay, like I said before, I spent all this time here with this person. Are they okay? Will I hear from them again? And a lot of times in my own particular journey, when I've met people who, when loved ones have passed, they're met with longing, and because they want to know that they're going to see that person again on the other side, and how that is. And a lot of the people I've come in contact with who want that information are not mystics; they're Christian.
Right. Okay.
They're Christian, and the reason why I'm saying that in particular is because most of the people on the planet they say are Christian.
Because that tradition doesn't speak to those things. So
Right.
there is a great mystery because there's nothing to really communicate about what happens after someone passes, or how you can contact them. Even though there are, verses in the Bible and things like that that do, they are talking about ancestors. They are
Most of it is talking about ancestors.
taking an account, taking an
Right.
account for the patriarchs of the family and those kind of things. Here's someone they're saying that many of them have come to me in my dreams. That's how I have known certain things. Exactly, Talina. Yeah, the and being open, right? Like if you're open to that, I think about my mom is kind of psychic, but she was afraid of it because of in the church, the way she was raised. And it may not be that way now, I don't know, but in the old school church that she came out of, any kind of spirit coming to visit you was some kind of demonic thing, something to be afraid of. Getting messages from ancestors or spirits. Because let's say someone does come to you and you may not have known them in your life, but they're still an ancestor, right? But you don't know who it is, just some image or some energy that you feel or see, and they're trying to give you a message. Well, if you've been told that those things are, demons or, some negative thing, you're going to run from that.
Right.
And so she shut down her psychic ability for years.
Right.
And now in later years, as she became more of a senior citizen, it was kind of hard, I think, to resist or whatever it was. She started to see that stuff, but she was still afraid of it and still wasn't able to necessarily access whatever the messages were and things that was trying to come across. So, Talina, it's great that you're open and you allow those messages to come through, because then you get a chance to get the benefit of the wisdom, the warnings, the encouragement,
the love.
Yeah, the love, all of that. Mm-hmm.
The love. So I felt like, and thank you for that, and thank you, Talina. And I felt like it was necessary to say that first before we even get into ancestral veneration, what life was like before and how it is now. To people skirt around it. That's ultimately what I'm saying. Me being somebody who used to read for people and such, people want to know, well, my mom, about their mama, their baba, their grandmother, and sometimes even there have been times I've met people and their people will just show up and introduce themselves, and I'm like, did you have a such and such that did XYZ, da da da? And I'll be like, how'd you know? Because like, is she standing right here, or he's standing right here, or they're giving you this, you know what I'm saying? And then of course they just start crying because it's confirmation for them. And I think it's really important that people first understand that we are spirits having this human experience.
Yes.
And so when people pass, they are just like walking down a hall. That's like you and I are in this room. And when we leave out this room, we go down a corridor. So they go down a corridor into a whole nother room, into a whole nother dimension, into a whole nother space. But they do come back and check on us. And it's different from a ghost. It's not a ghost. An ancestor is not a ghost. It's not a goblin. It's not a demon. An ancestor is actually a jurisdiction. Everybody who passes... Maybe I can't get any more close than what I am. The chair has...
No. Come on. Go ahead. Just saying. Because you're falling off the edge here. I want you to be right there. There you go.
All right, Baba. So, your hands are warm.
Yeah, I try to keep it that way.
Anyway, so they are not
ghosts.
They're not ghosts or goblins. They're not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think watching movies in Hollywood movies, I think that has definitely played a huge role.
Yeah.
And why people don't venerate their ancestors. The church does too, but you know what? I can't even say it's so much the church, because the church will talk about Dr. Martin Luther King. Some people talk about Malcolm X. They'll talk about Frederick Douglass. They'll talk about
Hamer. You can name
all of them. They'll talk about all of
American greats.
Sojourner Truth. They're ancestors. Everybody that people will talk about community. Let me turn this off.
Yeah.
People will talk about ancestors, community ancestors, before they'll talk about their own people. Why?
Right. Well, because I mean, the community ancestors. First of all, we don't call them that. we think of them as historical figures, right? We think of them as people who've done great things. We don't use their language, so
Right.
that's one thing. It's like seeing someone in a history book or in the classroom or seeing some documentary about someone. We don't think of that as veneration of that person or keeping their spirit engaged, like keeping it alive. We don't think of it in those terms, but that's what we're doing.
Right.
We're actually keeping those spirits active.
And it elevates them.
It elevates them.
And so
yes,
they're able to work in a huge capacity.
Yes.
Excuse me for cutting you off.
No,
I got excited. Yes. In the community, in a huge way.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what would happen if we did the same for our own people?
Exactly. And even for those who are in the traditions of Christian and stuff, when you go back and you're talking about Moses, all people, these are ancestors. So I mean, you're talking about their exploits and things that they did.
Right.
Same way you could be talking about Uncle Johnny, Grandma, how she made sure everybody was fed, and just recognizing that and elevating them through remembering them. That's what veneration really means, right?
Remembering, venerate, to honor. It's not worship.
Right. Okay.
It's to venerate is reverence and honor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
through that you build a communication.
You build communication. You build even understanding. All ancestors weren't slaves.
Oh no, let's not get. Actually, most weren't. I mean, that's one of the biggest.
And I'm not trying to be. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's not sad and
controversial.
Everybody. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying slavery didn't exist.
Yes,
what I'm saying is that all ancestors are not weeping, wailing, gnashing of teeth, and it's not like that.
Right.
And we have ancestors before the Great Ma'afa.
Definite. Oh man. Yeah.
There's our history starts before 1600 and such, or some people go back as far as 1500. We have been here.
Yeah. From the very beginning. Yeah.
So our ancestors go back so far.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there are certain ancestors who are the mouthpieces for the family at a specific time. That's been my experience.
Okay.
That you have certain ones that step up and they speak for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Because honey, if everybody's talking to you at once, honey, you just not gonna be well.
Yeah, that's too much.
It's just too much.
I mean, think about that for a second. I mean, you're talking about going back to antiquity. You're talking about literally millions, hundreds of millions of people, of spirits.
But those spirits can't even be your ancestors at that point, because not saying that they can't be, but DNA wise, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But those spirits have also gone on
to their next
role.
Mm-hmm.
The role of an ancestor is not forever.
That's right.
Just like our role here in this realm is not forever.
That's right.
It's a certain point in time in which we have a certain mission that we come here to do. Same thing with our ancestors. Now, in African spiritual systems, and I can speak specifically in Isheshe Yoruba, it is said that people come through. Oh, thank you all. People come through. They come back.
Right.
They come back. So
into a new body.
In that family line.
Right.
That's where Baba Tunde, Yatunde, Yewande, certain names like that. The mother has returned.
Mm-hmm.
The father has returned. That's where those names come from.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that this person this was the grandma, the Baba that was here, or so on and so forth. This person has been here before we recognize the spirit.
That's right.
There's other traditions that, yes, there are ancestors, but after a while, they go on and they do something more than the life and death cycle.
But you saying that helped me to realize something, that with that being the case, it makes it that much more important to communicate and venerate the ancestors, so that when they are available, like, whoever it might be, that you're speaking to them when they are present. You know what I'm saying? When they have you said that they may not, there's a time period when they have that work to do, that job to do, right?
Right. They're not always going to be that.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So, for instance, and give you an example. Let's say it's your great grandmother or something.
Right.
And then she's moved on to another position.
Or she may be moved on to be your next
Or
child that you have.
She may have come back into the family line.
Right.
Right.
So it's not going to be the same amount of wisdom. It's going to be different because she's dropped that and she's come back in to be a baby again.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So to me, when I hear that, I'm like, then it makes it that much more important to elevate those who have passed on through calling their name. And we talk about that as well. Like, you know, how do you elevate the ancestor? And then building that communication so that while they are in that position, they can do the most for you until they move on to the next thing.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about that some too, though. So when an elder or someone in the family line does pass, what do we need? What does the person need to do to?
In just a lay person's way?
Yeah, just regular folks.
So, because that's important.
Yeah, no, of course.
It's really important.
It's different between if you're a priest or a practitioner,
right?
Or you're just someone who may be watching this and hearing this and saying, well, I want to make sure that my ancestors are good, or I want to start this relationship. You know,
some people have pictures up.
Mm-hmm.
So some people. Okay, so let's talk about what an ancestor is.
Okay.
An ancestor is a person that is in certain schools of thought have different beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
An ancestor is someone who lived that is a part your ancestry,
right?
So
your family line,
mm-hmm. that has. Some people say who had kids. Some people say who haven't. I think a person can be an ancestor if they haven't had children.
Right.
That's just me. That is not what I practice. You know what I'm saying? And that's not.
This is your understanding.
I'm saying this is what I personally, Ananda, believe.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Is that a person can be an ancestor?
Sure.
Without having had children. Now, some people say no, that's not
mm-hmm.
the case. That an ancestor can only be an ancestor if they've had children, that they lived a life that someone can speak well of.
Good character.
That they've had good character,
mm-hmm.
That they were not somebody that caused death, destruction, and mayhem.
Right. No scoundrels.
You know, I wouldn't say, I think there's levels to that.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that.
Okay. You said death, destruction, and mayhem. So we'll put it at that.
So I'm thinking about people who, like rapists, murderers, people who just, pedophiles, people who just, when you think of dark things.
People who you wouldn't necessarily want to be remembering,
right? Like, and they're not considered ancestors because you're not wanting to call ancestors are people who can guide you.
Yes,
they're spirits that had lived here, that lived well. They understand what it is to pay bills. They understand what it is to be married or partnered or love. They understand what it is to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. Everybody does not get married.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody does not have children.
Right.
Everybody doesn't have, but it doesn't mean that once they drop a body, that they're not of service.
Right.
Mm-hmm. What else was I going to say? So people that you can speak well of, I'm not talking about one person, 5 people. I'm talking about people when they go to talk about the person, you know what I'm saying? They be like, yes, such and such. And it's consistent.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's consistent. Human beings are human. So there might be somebody who had some affairs. There might be somebody who drank. It's not about necessarily morality.
Right.
Because human stuff happens.
Right.
And that's another reason why it's important to, when people pass, you pray for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You pray for them, because what the spirit endures once it comes into this body is a completely different thing than what was set out, what the mission was for that soul when it came into the body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So nobody is exempt from going off missing the mark.
No.
Whatever that mark is.
That's that Erykah Badu song. You took a wrong turn back there somewhere. It's like, Yeah, you're going down the road of life, and that's Bob Marley too. Life is one big road with lots of signs. I mean, you might take a wrong turn.
Right.
It doesn't mean that your life is uh, unaccomplished or you haven't, done well. You may not have achieved everything. You may not have finished the mission,
Right.
right? But that doesn't mean that your life is not valuable, or the contributions that you can make as an ancestor
Right.
could actually be beyond what you were able to do
Right.
in your physical body.
Yeah. I think that's important. I think that's one of the things, and I'm gonna park here real quick and really get into that a little bit. Because one day we will all be ancestors.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
God willing, yes.
God willing. And we all have been.
Yes.
And I think that's the other conversation too, is that what you will become, you have been.
All right, we're getting real deep now. Oh, you gotta button up your jacket. Yes, go ahead and tell them. I love it.
Don't be funny.
No, I'm not being funny. I'm serious. That's awesome what you said. What you
will become, you have been.
Yeah, man, that's
and
powerful.
So, they gave me a little something.
Go ahead, man. Bring it on.
That'll preach.
Yeah. You thought you was gonna get a spoonful, you got a cupful. Yeah, come on.
So it's important that we understand that all of us, even myself in these moments, that we understand that this is a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
We are in cycle. We are in process. And the cycle isn't like this so much. It's like this.
It's a spiral. Yeah, not a circle where you're repeating the same thing over. You're hopefully spiraling up.
Or a spectrum.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Because when we talk about up and down, and people
hierarchy,
or people equate it with good and bad, and left or right, or sin and saint, and all that other carrying on. And the bottom line is everybody has been something at least once. You can't recall it because you're here now.
Right.
You're in this present body, in this present incarnation, in this present condition. And so that's why so much compassion is needed.
Right.
It's important, not just for yourself, but for others.
Right.
And so.
Hold on, stop right there for a second. The compassion is needed because we're all going through this experience of becoming who we are.
Right.
And you want to give people.
Say that again.
The compassion is needed because we're all going through the experience of becoming who we are.
Right.
And you want to allow people the space to be, just because as much as we need that space too. Like people want forgiveness. We want to be understood. We want to be appreciated. We want to be recognized, right? And it's the same thing. Well, we have to do that for others as well. That's all a part of this journey that we're on.
Because when you go and sit with your ancestors, I don't want to get all over the place, but and I will get back to how do you set up a space for your people? How do you venerate your people? Things like this.
Sure.
Right. And we'll talk about that. And we'll also talk about what our lives were like before and how they are now. And so getting into the space of, or in the place of, venerating our people. And why? Because they live lives just like we did. So their scope is further. They're no longer in these bodies, so they have more bird's eye view. It's like we're walking on the ground and they're like here.
Right.
And they can see. And they can see further ahead too. So they're not just seeing us in this time. They're seeing us maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road, a year down the road. That's why they can come in dreams and say there's a baby coming, or there's somebody's about to pass, or you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They can see, they have that because they're not bound to this physical experience any longer. Also, they're not bound so much. And this is where we get to the conversation of having a powerful ancestor versus having a well ancestor.
Okay.
Because somebody might be like, such and such did you dirty. Well, this is what you do to do. Right?
Uh-huh.
That's the ancestor. You understand? That ancestor, somebody did you dirty, so somebody goes to the ancestors about whooping ass.
Oh, I see. Okay. Take care of this.
Take care of this.
Right.
They may be powerful.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're coming from a more well and uplifting place. And there are differences.
Right.
And I'm not saying, I mean, from what I've been taught and what I've seen and what I've experienced personally, and at another time and place in my own evolution, I would probably want the ancestor that's telling me to whoop some ass. Because then I feel validated in doing a certain thing.
Right.
My ancestors now don't talk to me about that. They didn't really before. They've always come to me with wisdom. And then you have ancestors that are powerful and they may pass of an illness, and that illness is still on them, but they're still able to do the work in the family, but you don't want them to carry that illness. So then you get work done for them so they're able to be lighter in their ancestral expression, and then they can do more. They can do more for you. Well, what's the difference between, somebody might be like, well, I want God and Jesus to do it for me.
Sure.
And that's cool, but your ancestors have been given a jurisdiction by way of the Most High.
Right.
So the spirit world is not just filled with, and again, somebody probably argue me down about this, the spirit world is not just filled with angels and demons. You have a whole bunch of different entities or energies that have certain jobs.
Well, as above, so below.
Right.
I mean, we're here on the planet. There's so many different roles people play, so many different jobs people have, so many different interests and proclivities and approaches that we as human beings have. So why would we think it's anything less in the spiritual world? If anything, it will be more dynamic because there's less constraints in that space,
in different dimensions in the spirit world.
Yeah, and even if you're not spiritual, even now science is saying the same stuff. Like you're talking about physics and string theory, and they're talking about all the different dimensions that exist, and there are parallel universes. This is Western science now that is basically spiritual, because they're talking about things that they can't really see and measure, but they know it's there now. So these worlds are starting to come together. And also when you're talking about the different roles and calling on Jesus and God for help versus talking to your ancestors, imagine all the people who are calling on Jesus.
There's a lot of people calling on Jesus.
I mean, so many, right?
Yeah.
But then think about who's calling on your grandma. It may be only you, 2-3 people. So of course she's gonna be able to respond faster because I mean she's waiting by the phone. She's like, man, can somebody call me? I'm trying to help. Hey, I see you guys going through something. Somebody call me so I can help. And then she's waiting on you.
Yeah. And
Jesus is like, man, writing stuff down. Hold on, I'm gonna try to get to you when I can. No, I mean, just think about it though. I mean, if you think about it, that's these are my thoughts, okay, and not trying to offend. But when you think about it that way, it's like, come on, you've got someone who knows you. Not saying Jesus doesn't, but your grandma definitely knows you. Your family line, people know you. They want you to succeed. They know what it is to be alive in this time period or some time period. They know what it is to be human on this earth in this modern time,
right?
And they want to support you. They're just waiting for you to reach out.
Right.
So, yeah. So why hesitate?
So then so when people pass, they usually have 40 days. Well, the first 7 days, that's when a lot of the certain work is done for the spirit. Because just like when people, we might have to do a part 2 of this.
But this is old school stuff too. Like we're talking about African spiritual traditions, but before, let's talk about that time when they had the cooling board. When somebody passed, they didn't just throw them in take them to the undertaker or whatever. They actually let them stay in the house, in the bed for a certain period of time.
Oh yeah, because like when the body, it takes a while for the body to get cold, even for the spirit,
right, to fully separate,
to get up. It takes a thing,
right. And they
You
knew
know?
that. Our ancestors knew that. This is before, the times we have in now with the modern time and the whole funerary industry and all that kind of stuff. People would actually sit in the house. They would be in the bed, and people would come and view the body
Yep.
for several days. For several days they would do that. That was part of the process. That's like, to me, that's like an African continuum, like something that was part of our African tradition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because at home, the ancestors aren't buried in the graveyard; they're buried in the house,
right, underneath the floor, and
underneath or in the wall.
Right.
When people want to go talk to their ancestors, they go to the wall when they back. I'm telling y'all the truth. And I know in Yoruba land, they're buried. If it's not in the family compound outside, depending on, now I'm talking about people who practice a Sheshe Yoruba. I'm not talking about, I don't know what for the Christians or the Muslims. I'm talking about the people who practice this. So when Yah died, they be in state, basically in the bed. People come see, they give their their respects, and then during this time, the family's trying to figure out, okay, well, now where are we gonna put this one? This is the wall. This Baba, this Yah is at. And if you want to go talk to them, you go to that wall. You know what I'm saying? They'll go, they give offerings, gin, palm oil, things like this. Divine cast,
Right.
You give offering, whatever other offerings they may need.
Right.
And so there's no going to no cemetery. They're in the house.
Right.
Or out in the compound someplace on the family property or something like this.
You were talking about the times. That's why I got into the whole cool.
Oh, thank you.
The 7 days and the 40 days.
The 7 days it takes. That's when you say the most prayers.
Those first 7 days.
Those first 7 days, because that person, we're gonna have to do a part 2 of this. That person, usually by around this time, they're visiting. They're going to see people in their dreams, going to visit, going to touch, That's how when people pass, they might, get a chill or they'll feel them. They'll physically feel them there and smell them, or hear them. It's a very beautiful time. It's a very sacred time. Because just like when someone's leaving a room, leaving heaven, the spirit's leaving heaven, there's a thing that a person has to do to come into this body.
Right.
That's why that time when the baby is born is so fragile. People think, sometimes they call it SIDS.
Sudden infant death.
Syndrome. Sometimes that spirit, that first 3 months, 6 months, that first year is so for some people, that first 5 years. Sometimes you ever see a baby and the baby don't really look like it's fully here. Then you see some babies, they look like, what's up? Like,
right. Ready for action.
When can I have some food? This titty milk thing was popping. I want some chicken.
Right.
So that time is very sensitive time, just like leaving is very sensitive time. That's how some people know that they're about to leave. They start to and I'm not saying by their own hands, I'm saying they know that they're being called home.
Sometimes they're being visited by their ancestors.
Sometimes people see people come and see them.
That's right. Coming to get them.
And don't you know, my first teacher, Yanifa Ifadoyi, she told me, she said, you want to, just like you want to live well, and her grandmother told her, you want to die well too. You want a good death. And people don't usually want to think about that because people not trying to think about leaving. Most people are not.
Yeah, I think we should think more about that though, because it would help in a lot of different areas, but that's another conversation. I mean, you can't pretend as though death is not a part of life. I think that's where a lot of that pain people go through and stuff too, because they never consider it, until it happens. And it's like, oh man, this thing has happened, and you're in this deep grief and everything. Nothing wrong with the grieving process and experiencing that, but I think if we were more aware on a daily basis, there's an old yogic practice about that, where you basically live as though you're going to die. Like being aware you're going to die, it brings you so much into the present moment to realize that you're going to die. If you're going to die today, what would you be doing? Would you be gossiping? Would you be, stealing from your job? Or,
Right.
would you be out serving other people? Would you be doing the things you love? Would you be singing songs? Would you be spending more time with your kids? If this was your last day on the planet, what would you be doing? If you lived every day like that, then
People would live more intentionally.
it'd be an incredible life. I mean, talk about dying well, man. It'd be the ultimate, right? If we
Right.
could just keep that in mind. But go ahead. You said the thing about the value of having a good death.
Well, just like so. Zakai, you just said some stuff. Now I'm up here thinking I lost my
Oh, I didn't mean to
daggone
throw
train
you
of
off.
thought.
It's okay. We're talking about living
Uh,
and also dying, and the fact that there's a great mystery in both of those things. Like you talked about the babies coming in and how
Right,
delicate
but
that
I'm
time is.
I'm trying to think about when I was talking about the dying well part
Right.
because that I felt the crescendo building.
Okay.
Um,
Enifa Doyin was sharing.
oh
with you.
yeah, she was. Her grandmother told her,
Mhm.
and so like in that, we want to make sure that like when we tend to our loved ones that they pass as best, even if it was unforeseen or maybe even some really sad circumstances. Like for instance, when somebody's older, elder, they've lived 99 years.
Mhm.
They ain't too much to cry about.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're gonna miss them.
Sure. But they've done it all.
They did it.
Yeah. Mhm.
They lived it,
Mhm.
and they passed well.
Mhm.
That's a good, when everybody's around the person, they're singing,
Right.
they're, you know what I'm saying, and the person can say, you can feel it. You can feel the people. I've heard people tell me stories. You can feel the energy in the room. You can feel it. You can feel the spirits. You can feel the ancestors. You can feel the presence of God.
That's that going home. That's that celebration that people talk about.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's definitely a thing.
Yes.
It's one of the ultimate initiations,
Mhm. Mhm.
that we can be a part of
Mhm.
when we come here and then when we're leaving.
Mhm.
And to be in that is, I think, remarkable, and it's a wonder, and it's
Yeah.
awesome. And you had an opportunity to be in the room when your father passed.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, again, the great mysteries, right? Birth and death, and being there with him, myself and my siblings and my mom, we all stood around the bed and sang one of his favorite songs. And we were there when he took his last breath, and you could feel his spirit fill the room. Like as it left his body, you could feel the room get filled with his energy.
Mm.
And I don't know if we were crying, probably were, but it was just really powerful. I mean, I'm getting chills now just remembering it. And before he passed, he was a Christian. My dad was a pastor, but he told me privately a couple of days before he passed that he was going to be able to do more for me where he was going than he could here. So he had an understanding of being an ancestor that he never really talked about prior to that I remember. But clearly he knew that there was a spiritual world. I mean, and not just the thing about like going to heaven and being some far off thing with harps and stuff. Like the way he communicated to me, it was like he would be working. You know what I'm saying? Like he would be helping. You know what I'm saying? So it was really powerful. So yeah, when that moment to be able to be there was very special, and he did die a wonderful, beautiful death. Yeah,
and so he should have, because he lived a beautiful life.
Yeah,
and he was in service to so many, and there were so many people still talk about him.
Mm-hmm.
Not just family, but
Bishop Louis T. Tate Sr.
Yeah,
love you, Dad.
Yeah. So someone said Veronica.
Veronica, yeah.
Okay. She says, I have my father's ashes and I feel his spirit every day. And then Sis has also said, I was also in the room when my father passed. It was very powerful and I'll never forget.
A day I'll never forget.
A day I'll never forget.
Exactly. Yes. Incredible. And again, I mean, I've been around when babies been born, our babies. I've experienced that. There's an energy, there's a power in that. It's like, whoa, you could feel those spirits coming. and it's not dissimilar to the spirit.
You can feel the
leaving there.
spirit when it's, as a mother, you can feel the energy. I felt this energy of each and one of our children in the womb,
Mm-hmm.
because their spirit is not in my belly so much; it's outside of me.
Right.
So you can feel who's coming,
Mm-hmm.
like who's coming to dinner,
Mm-hmm.
and these people are off the hook.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a bit of I at least had a bit of a preview
Mm-hmm.
in dreams and such to how they would be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like how they are.
Yeah.
And I would just say, so 7 days, 40 days. So it's a 7-day, 40-day.
7 days of prayers and the spirit of the person who has passed.
And this is the lay way.
The spirit of the person who has passed is basically beginning the journey.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Disconnecting.
Please,
from the
yes,
body.
I want people to know. I'm going to share this, that as soon as a person dies, they're not up in heaven looking down
Right.
at nobody.
Right.
That's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
You pray that they do cross over.
Right. It's a journey.
It is a journey.
Yeah. I mean, when you go back to, let's talk about our Egyptian
Now,
ancestors, they talked about that journey. I mean, it's really, it can be an intense passage.
Now maybe with younger people,
Mm-hmm.
like children, like that,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because they didn't acquire karma. They didn't acquire like all these experiences and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's different. It's a little different. But for folks that have been hanging around tarrying, like it's different, and I'm not gonna sit here and say like I know first. I mean, I do know firsthand. I don't remember,
Mm-hmm.
but folks are around for at least the first month or so. They don't just go on and go.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they show on shows, like they go on and go.
Sure.
No, so and the reason why they see people like other ancestors come to get them is so you have a guide.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like, and you want somebody to come and collect you.
Right.
And that actually speaks to your life.
Mm-hmm.
When you're somebody, it could be in some traditions that say a spirit guide or an angel or ancestor. Somebody has come to say it's time to go.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's time to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the 7 days and there's the 40 day. Usually by 40 days, people make a meal, a big feast. Sometimes they'll have like an altar specifically for their ancestors. Now, I am very trepid about giving out any information like that unless somebody is actually working with a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certain things that you can do if you like for that specific person if they've passed. You can leave out their favorite food. You can definitely leave out water for them. Some people put flowers on a specific table for them, designated for that person that has passed.
Mm-hmm.
How
about candles? You light a candle?
Some people do like a white candle.
Mm-hmm.
And food, maybe things that they like to wear, like maybe a cologne or a perfume or things like that. But that's really just saying, you're not saying prayers to them, you're saying prayers for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what ancestral veneration is still about. You're saying prayers. You're in relationship,
right,
with people who are no longer physical.
Mm-hmm.
But they're very much still alive,
mm-hmm,
in spirit. What was your life like before you started doing ancestral veneration?
What was my life like? I just think I don't know about the before and after. I can just say that getting involved in this tradition and recognizing my ancestors as an active participant in my life really helped to expand my awareness of my responsibility.
How so?
Because before I think about, I may have thought about my family line in some kind of a general way, like but not even really. I mean, just thinking about yourself and maybe my siblings and everything. But with the ancestors and considering them, it makes me think about the lineage and the different aspects of myself that come from that lineage, and what do I contribute to it, like how my life today will contribute to our children and our children's children and generations to come.
Right.
It just made me more aware of the responsibility of this life and the opportunity to do what I came here to do. And I'm definitely not arrived in any kind of place like that. Like I'm still in the space of being diligent about making time to sit with the Egun, with the ancestors, and communicate with them, to access their wisdom, and so, but knowing that is available, is a support, and it provides comfort. And I had an instance like a week or two ago when I was kind of like out of sorts and stuff and feeling all weird. And I just,
what do you mean was feeling weird?
Just like I go through this thing. You tell me, I go, am I doing the right thing? I need to go do this. I want, like it's not happening the way I wanted it to happen. You just get this anxiety about, hey, I need to be doing something, And then I sat with the ancestors and I was like, this is what I'm dealing with, how I'm feeling. And it was just comfort and love. Like, man, just relax. You know what I'm saying?
They will.
It's fine. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
Just be diligent about what you're doing.
Right.
The rest of that stuff is going to happen, you know? And but it's good to have that support, and it's a spiritual support. It's not like you, baby, you support me all the time, you're telling me and everything. But another human being telling you is one thing, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, they're gonna support you because they see you every day and they love you. But to feel that spiritual support, it's just different. It just is so empowering.
Right.
And it makes me feel full. Like, there's so much more happening than what I can touch, smell, taste, hear, see.
Right.
And that they have my back.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Ooh, excuse me. I mean, I know for me, and I also feel the need, and this, I'm sure this is my ego, to just say, we don't just worship our ancestors. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that you can be Christian and Muslim and still, or Baha'i or whatever, Buddhist, and venerate your ancestors.
Yeah.
It's not taking away from what, and in fact, I think that it helps facilitate a deeper relationship with your higher power, because you have someone that is saying, yes, this is how we practice, or this may not be how we practice. Like, I have ancestors that are Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
I have ancestors, one of my ancestors who I'm named after, she's Muslim. She knows I practice the ATR. I have ancestors that are Christian. They still support me. They still love me. They're like, that's your path. They support my path because my path does lead to God.
Right.
Period.
Right.
It's just not the same way in which they practiced.
Mm-hmm.
And so in honoring, for me, in ancestral veneration, I'm saying I have ancestors that are Christian. I have ancestors that are Muslim. I'm sure I have ancestors that are Hindu.
Mm-hmm.
I have ancestors that have who practiced and worshiped the divine in all manner of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And they all live in me right now.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of my blood, the life force energy that's running through my veins right now, that could be dated back to antiquity, to the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
They are in me right now.
Ashe.
And I don't have to know all of the names of all of the lineages. And I don't have to have a picture of every single person in order to know that they know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Just like our higher power knows who we are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that my life was empty before I even knew about worshiping ancestors. And I believed in a higher power. I actually did a lot of metaphysical practices around angelics and that vein of study. But it wasn't until I tapped into my people that I started to feel grounded.
Mm.
It wasn't until the first time I felt them come to me, you know, and the first time I felt my father's mother, Fatima, come to me. And in fact, the first time I went to go have a divination with Yanifa Ifadoyin, and when she came out, and I've said this on here before, when she came out, and I was there with a friend of mine at the time, and she said, "You're Fatima," and I said, "How do you know?" And she said, "Because your grandmother is standing right to your side, pointing at you like this,
Mm-hmm.
saying, 'This is my child. She belongs to me.'"
Mm.
And she described what she looked like. And I was blown away because I, for so long, even in life, felt so alone. And it was so reassuring to me that, well, and then I had to think about other things like, oh, you see what I'm doing all the time? And that's what y'all do. You know, like I had to,
right.
you know, and it also helps you check your character. For me,
for some people,
to know, for me, it wasn't enough to be like, oh, God's watching me, taking account. That didn't even faze me for whatever reason like that.
It's kind of abstract, you know.
It was, but when I know, Granny, you know,
Granny see you,
right? They just did something different.
Can't even tuck over here, do it.
Right?
Right.
It just did something different, but it was not in this way that she was going to, like, chastise me,
right.
But it's like, what would you do in front of an elder?
Right.
What would you do?
Want to be your best.
Right.
You want to be your best.
Right. And so when I started training for a long time, that's all my teacher focused on was our Ori, our own personal spirit and guide. Our first shrine is our spirit, our own soul. And then our Egun. That's what was taught. Those are the ones you come here with. You know what I'm saying? So don't be looking for Ashun and Yemaja and Shango. They know who you are too. But take care of your people. And in fact, I was talking to a sister friend of mine this morning, and we were talking about ancestral veneration as well. And she said, you know why people don't want to focus on their ancestors?
Why?
Because they don't focus on themselves or their family.
Okay. Because people focus outward. They're looking at other people.
So it's like not that they don't love their families, but if you pay attention to people, how they some people, not all people, but how they talk to their family, they always talk about it like it's a drag. Like, I got to do this, the obligation of this, that, and the other, or the relationships are not, harmonious, or the ancestral curses and stuff like that. That's another thing. When you take care of your ancestors, when you start taking care of your ancestors, when they pass over, they also get access to greater knowledge, awareness, wisdom, medicine, spiritual medicine, to be able to unearth and put together and, remove certain things that are in the family line that you can't do.
Right.
So when people have an issue in the family, let's say, name something. Alcoholism. You go to your ancestors, you pray to your ancestors, you ask them to help, correct this. You know when something's a family, a familial issue when you've seen it for generations.
Right.
It's not just something you're seeing like right now. It's something that you've seen. Oh, such and such used to love liquor. Oh, such and such and they brothers and sisters. Oh, they sit around getting hammered and smashed all the time. Oh, such and such. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, granny and granny. When you go back generations, you'd be like, you know what? This is the issue.
This is the issue, right? You sitting around like Petey Green. I love the taste of liquor. Right. You realize, okay, you need some help with
And
that.
then sometimes it's not even. Sometimes the cravings that people have is not even their own cravings; it's their ancestors.
Yes, I've experienced that definitely. Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes there's certain foods that you might, out of the blue, foods you don't even eat that you may want, but your ancestors want it. So
some pickled pig feet. Don't go get that for yourself. You know, you might want to go put that on the altar. You know, make sure they got what they need.
Yeah, but in Sheshe Yoruba, there's certain preparations that you make for your ancestors. It's a little different.
Right.
It's a little different. But I do think it's important that people do learn how to venerate their ancestors, that they do learn how to call on their ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
That also, if you get the need to, and you put pictures up of your egun, your ancestors, don't put no pictures up of yourself with with them.
Right. No, because you're not there.
Because you're not. Yeah, don't do that.
Right.
Because you're not an ancestor. Don't.
You're still living.
You're still living.
So you don't want to mix that up.
Don't do that. But they love you.
Mm-hmm.
They love you. They want to support you. They
want to see you succeed.
I was going to say your endeavors, the things that you. But sometimes they don't want to support everything that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say this, I'm saying that they want to support the things that you have come here to do authentically.
Mm.
They want to support your mission here.
There it is.
And everything that you have come here to do, or everything that we're doing is not always in support of our best self, of our highest self. And it's not always in support of what we've come here to do.
True.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to recognize those things, and we can talk more about that another time because we still have. There's so much more I would like to. Share about this.
This is a very rich space to talk about. I mean, I think it's something that, particularly now, as people are more into spirituality and kind of opening up, and you see a lot more kind of mystical kind of things going on online and things like that. And people wanting to get readings, all kind of different type of readings and things like that. I think it's really helpful for people to understand the value of your ancestors, the value of building a relationship, communicating. And as you were saying earlier, you know, in the tradition that we follow, there's some specific guidelines and things to do, but that does not preclude you from doing some basic things of just beginning to recognize that your ancestors are around you.
Right.
You know, and again, waiting for you to communicate with them. And build a relationship.
Yeah, and I also think it's important if you do feel compelled to learn more, feel free to maybe write, and we have resources we can send to you and things like that. But you don't necessarily have to join anyone or anything in order to do.
Oh man, say that again, please.
You don't necessarily have to join anyone or anything in order to worship or to venerate your ancestors, because they belong to you.
They already belong to you.
They belong to you.
Don't get caught up in, well, I'm going to this church or I'm doing this thing. That's all fine. That has nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
don't let that be a block to you building a relationship.
You know? Yeah, because they definitely
it'll actually make, like you, as you said already, it'll actually make those things richer.
It'll enrich your experiences. For me, that's what has happened for me in my life.
Me
the
too.
more I felt seen, heard, and supported by my egun, and the more also has helped my family. You know, and the more my life has actually changed. And don't just go to them wanting things either. They're not no daggone genie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think about it with the elder.
Mm-hmm.
When you go talk to an elder, an older person, you're going to them to get knowledge, to not even to get, but you pray that they sprinkle you with some knowledge. Sometimes you just go and spend time.
Be in the presence. Just be with them.
Yeah, you just go and spend time.
Yeah.
Because that's where the real juice is in really facilitating a real relationship. And some people nowadays, they don't want no real relationship with people. It's really tangential and transactional. Please don't treat your ancestors like that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't treat other people like that.
No.
Please. And I'm not trying to scold, but it's really important. It's important that you don't want somebody just coming to you, use you.
True.
So you treat people and your ancestors how you want to be treated. And then as you do that, as you continue, I'm about to go over, sorry, as you facilitate this relationship with your ancestors, it'll help you with facilitating relationships, having deeper and more meaningful bonds with people in real life.
I say.
The most important being yourself.
There it is.
So
thank you so much for this time we've had with you, and we'll talk about this more.
Yeah.
And please share with your friends this stream so they can come and partake with us
and hang out with us.
Yeah, have a good time.
Yeah.
All right. So be well, everyone.
Thank y'all for joining us. One breath, one vibe, one tribe. Peace.